Black woman fell for her best friend's brother. But he has a dark secret. Adiz Okafor had always believed dreams came in soft colors. Warm sunlight slipping between curtains. The familiar hum of home. The laughter of her mother in the kitchen. But the moment her flight descended into Seoul, her dreams became neon-lit and fast, wrapped in the electric pulse of a city she'd only known through dramas and fantasies. Scholarship in hand, suitcase full of hope, heart full of adventure. She never expected trouble to be waiting on the other side of the airport doors. Minji waved frantically the moment she spotted Adiz. Adiz, over here, her best friend from their online Korean exchange group, energetic, tiny, and bright as a firecracker. 12 hours, Adiz groaned, hugging her tightly. My soul is tired. You can rest at my house. It's big. Too big. My mom's in the countryside, and my brother. Well, she paused. What about your brother? Adiz asked, picking up her suitcase handle. Minji smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You won't see him much. He's always gone. The house that whispered secrets. Their home in Seoul wasn't just big. It was intimidatingly beautiful. Dark wood, high ceilings, shadows in the corners that seemed to flinch away from light. Adiz shivered. Your house looks like it has a secret library with cursed books. Oh, it has a library, Minji said cheerfully. But my brother said not to go in. Another pause. Just don't. They ate ramen, unpacked, talked until Minji's eyelids drooped, and then she left early the next morning for her campus club meeting. Adiz, still jet-lagged and confused about the house's layout, woke up needing the bathroom. She walked down the hallway barefoot, yawning, rubbing her eyes, and opened the wrong door. The man behind the wrong door. At first, she thought the room was empty. Dark curtains blocked most of the light. Then she saw him lying in bed, sheets low on his waist, chest bare. A carved jawline she could have sworn was sketched by God on his most boastful day. Kang Jin-hyuk, Minji's brother. Except nothing, not one photo Minji had ever shown, prepared her for this. His hair was messy, slightly damp, like he just stepped out of a shower before collapsing into bed. His breathing was slow, the kind that belonged to a man who didn't get enough sleep, yet moved through life with discipline. Then his eyelids lifted. Dark eyes, sharp, dangerous, awake far too quickly. He didn't bolt up in surprise. He assessed her slowly, calmly, like a man used to unexpected things showing up at his door. Wrong door. His morning voice was low, growly, almost sinful. Adiz's brain malfunctioned. Oh my God. Totally wrong door. She backed up so hard she hit the hallway wall, but his eyes stayed locked on hers the entire time. Heavy, piercing, a little amused, and something else, something that made her breath catch. Interest, claiming something he hadn't even touched yet. His presence lingered. At breakfast, Adiz tried to act like she hadn't just seen a man sculpted from sin itself. Minji handed her kimchi and rice. So, first night in Korea. How was it? Adiz nodded aggressively. Perfect. Fantastic. Loved it. Amazing house. Very nice walls. Good doors. Normal doors. Minji blinked. Are you okay? Before Minji could pry, footsteps echoed from the stairs. Slow, measured, commanding. Adiz tensed. He appeared. Kang Jin-hyuk fully dressed now. Black shirt, rolled sleeves, expression unreadable. But his eyes went straight to her. Not accidentally. Not subtly, direct, purposeful, like he remembered every detail of how she looked standing in his doorway. Minji sighed loudly. Be nice. This is my best friend from Nigeria. She's staying with us. His gaze didn't shift. I know that deep voice again. Adiz swallowed. Minji leaned closer and whispered, remember rule number 1. Never date my brother. I'm serious. Adiz nodded, but her eyes betrayed her. Because Jin-hyuk hadn't stopped staring. And the worst part, her heartbeat wasn't scared. It was curious, awake, dangerously alive. The first week in the Kang household taught Adiz something important. Jin-hyuk wasn't just quiet. He was studying her. His presence wrapped around the house like a shadow, silent, invisible, yet constantly felt. He never tried to start conversations, but somehow he always appeared when she did something he didn't approve of. And she was starting to realize there were many things he did not approve of. The first role, it happened on a Thursday night. Minji had invited Adiz to her university's welcome party. Adiz knew nothing about Seoul nightlife, but she was excited. She finally felt like she belonged somewhere. She put on a short black dress, the one she brought for special occasions. Not too revealing, but flattering, tasteful, pretty. She smoothed her hair in the mirror. Her reflection smiled back, a mix of nerves and excitement. Then the bedroom door slid open. She turned and nearly dropped her lipstick. Jin-hyuk was standing there, leaning against the frame, dressed in all black. His shirt clung to him like it was tailored to his heartbeat. He had a silver watch and his hair was styled back in that effortless, dangerous way. But his eyes traveled down her body slowly. Too slowly. He asked, voice low, "Are you going dressed like that?" Adiz blinked. Out with Minji." She laughed. "No, I wasn't asking for permission." He stepped into the room. Not close, but close enough that she felt his heat. "Change the dress." "Why would I change? Do I look bad?" "That's the problem." He snapped quietly. "You look very good." "Too good." Her breath caught. "You can't go out looking like that alone." "I'm not alone. I'm going with Minji." "That girl gets drunk on orange juice," he muttered. "She's not protection." She folded her arms. "I don't need protection." He looked at her as if she'd said something naive, something dangerous. "In Korea," he murmured, "a woman who looks like you walking alone at night is asking for trouble." His tone softened on the last word. Not gentle, but warning. She swallowed. "Oh, I'll take a taxi." His jaw tensed. "Adiz," he said, voice dropping dangerously low. "Change the dress." Her heart fluttered with irritation and something else she didn't want to name. "Fine," she said. "I'll put a jacket on." That muscle in his jaw ticked again, but he let her pass barely. The second roll. Downstairs, Minji was still getting ready. Adiz grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, while Jin-hyuk hovered nearby, like a storm cloud. "What now?" she asked. "No drinking." She nearly choked. "Excuse me. You heard me. You're not my father." "No," he said, eyes dark and steady. "I'm worse. And that's supposed to convince me." "I don't need to convince you. I'm telling you." She stared at him, disbelief mixing with an unwelcome warmth in her stomach. "What exactly is your problem with me going out?" He exhaled through his nose, a slow, controlled release of something sharp. "My problem," he murmured, stepping closer, "is that other men will look at you." Her pulse stuttered. "So I don't like it." Her mouth parted. Words failed her. This was insanity. It was inappropriate. It was possessive, and it made her skin tingle. The party. They left anyway. Minji hadn't heard the conversation. Too busy texting the party group chat. As they walked out, Adiz felt the weight of Jin-hyuk's gaze on her back. At the curb, he appeared again, quiet, unexpected, watching as they got into the taxi. His eyes locked on Adiz through the window, and something in his stare said, "Don't make me come after you." Inside the party, music thumped, lights flashed, students danced everywhere. But Adiz wasn't fully present. Her mind kept replaying his voice. "I don't like other men looking at you." What did that even mean? Was he jealous, overprotective, or simply controlling? None of the answers made sense. Yet, she kept touching the spot on her wrist where he'd almost grabbed her earlier. Almost as if he was holding himself back from something he desperately wanted. The third rule broken. A guy approached her near the drink table, smiling. "Is he going?" "Hey," he said. "You're new here, right?" Adiz smiled politely. "Yeah, first week. I'm Sungo. Want to dance?" Before she could answer, her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "Don't dance with him." Her heart stopped. Another message followed seconds later. "I'm outside." She swallowed hard. "Sorry," she told Sungo. "I need a moment." She pushed through the crowd, stepped outside, and found him. Jin-hyuk leaning against a sleek black car, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled, hands in pockets, watching her like he already knew she would come. "What are you doing here?" she asked, half breathless, half terrified. He pushed off the car and walked toward her. "You broke the rules." "I didn't. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. You entertained another man." "I talked to him," she shot back. "That's not a crime." "It is to me." Her pulse thudded. "You don't own me, Jin-hyuk." He stepped closer, close enough that she felt his breath on her cheek. "No," he whispered. "But I want to." Her knees went weak, and deep down she knew. This wasn't about rules. It was about control, desire, possession, and danger. A danger she couldn't resist. Adiz had never been the type to attract drama. She minded her business, lived quietly, stayed out of trouble. But trouble wasn't avoiding her. Trouble was following her. Trouble had a name. Jin-hyuk. The party that turned into a storm. Inside the party, The energy was electric. Flashing lights. Music so loud it vibrated in her bones. Students dancing with carefree abandon. It was the type of freedom she thought she'd come to Korea for. But she felt the tension under her skin. That message from him, those few words, echoed louder than the music. It made no sense. He wasn't her boyfriend. He wasn't even her friend. He was her best friend's older brother, a man she barely knew. Yet, she felt him everywhere. She grabbed a cup of juice and tried to breathe. Maybe he was bluffing. Maybe he wasn't actually. Hey, Sungo again. Easy smile. Friendly. Harmless. You okay? You rushed out earlier. I'm fine, she said quickly. Just getting some air. You want to dance now? Nothing intense, just fun. And she almost said yes, almost. But something told her she wasn't alone. She scanned the room. Nothing. Then a shadow at the far end of the hallway. Someone tall still watching. Her heart dropped. Jin-hyuk, she whispered. But the figure was gone as quickly as it appeared. The dance that got her in trouble. She told herself she was overreacting, so she joined Sungo. Just one dance, just two friends, just fun. But as the song shifted into a slower beat, Sungo's hands slid to her waist. Adiz froze. Is this okay? He asked gently. She opened her mouth to say something, but the music cut out abruptly. The lights flickered. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd, and then she felt it. A wave of energy, piercing, predatory. She turned. Students were parting instinctively, creating a path. And down that path walked a man in a black suit. Expression unreadable, eyes locked entirely only on her. Her stomach plummeted. He didn't acknowledge the crowd. He didn't scan the room. He didn't blink. He was walking to her. Every step calculated, every breath measured, every inch of him radiating fury held barely in check. When he reached them, Sungo stepped back instinctively. Jin-hyuk didn't even look at him. His attention was on Adiz alone. Outside, he said softly, but dangerously. It wasn't a request. The confrontation outside. The moment the door shut behind them, Adiz spun on him. What are you doing here? Are you stalking me? His jaw tightened. I'm protecting you. I didn't ask for protection. You don't have to ask. His voice was deadly calm. Too calm. Bands of tension wrapped around her ribs, making it hard to breathe. You embarrassed me, she said, voice shaking. You stormed into a college party like you own the building. I don't own the building, he said. His eyes darkened. I own the man who runs it. She blinked. What is that, Adiz? His voice dropped lower. I told you not to dance with him. You don't get to tell me what to do. You took a slow, icy step closer. Look me in the eye, he said quietly, and tell me you didn't feel something when I saw you with him. Her breath stilled. You're imagining things. She whispered. His eyes flashed, a dangerous spark. He moved closer until the heat of him pressed against her skin, until she could smell his cologne. Dark, clean, addictive. He murmured. You're jealous. She accused, voice barely audible. No, he said. Jealousy is too weak a word. His fingers brushed her wrist barely. Yet the touch sent a shock through her body. I don't want other men touching you, he whispered. Looking at you. Standing close to you. That's not your decision. His gaze lowered to her lips. It's not. Then he leaned in, his voice hot against her ear. It's my instinct. Her knees trembled. And that, he whispered, is far more dangerous. The moment that broke her defenses. Why, she breathed. Why do you care? He lifted her chin gently, forcing her eyes to meet his. Because, he said slowly, like a confession dragged from deep inside him. The moment you walked into my room, I haven't been able to look away. Her heart dropped to her stomach. He shook his head, silencing her. You think I'm jealous. But jealousy is small, ordinary, human. His hand slowly slid down her arm, stopping at her wrist again. What I feel, he swallowed, is possession. Her breath came out in a shaky whisper. You don't own me. His eyes softened, not with kindness, but with hunger. No, he admitted. But I want to. And the terrifying, exhilarating truth hit her like lightning. Part of her wanted him to, too. Adiz thought she had Jin-hyuk all figured out. Cold, possessive, irritatingly attractive, and bossy for no reason. But that night, she saw another man. A man who bled. A man who broke. A man who shouldn't have wanted her, yet couldn't seem to stay away. The night, everything shifted. The clock hit 1:23 a.m. when she heard the front door slam. Not gently, not quietly. A violent, frustrated slam that rattled the picture frames on the wall. She wasn't supposed to be awake, but the sound dragged her from her bed like a magnet. The lights were off downstairs. The house felt colder than usual. A silence so heavy it felt like someone had dropped grief into the air. She crept down carefully. At first, she didn't see him. Then she did. Jin-hyuk was sitting on the couch, elbows on his knees, chest rising and falling like he'd run a marathon. Black shirt torn, knuckles bruised, bleeding, a faint cut on his cheekbone. He didn't move, didn't flinch. He just stared at the floor like something terrifying was replaying in his mind. Adi's heart squeezed painfully. She should have walked away, given him space, listened to Minji's warning, but she didn't. She stepped closer. He lifted his head slowly. When his eyes met hers, she felt the world tilt. Gone was the arrogant, possessive, unshakable mafia boss. Sitting, there was a man exhausted down to the bone. A man carrying weight. No one should carry alone. He looked breakable, and that scared her more than anything. A touch that crossed the line. "You're hurt," she whispered. "It's nothing." Every time he said that, it was always something. She knelt beside him, reaching for his hand. He pulled away slightly, instinctively, like someone not used to being touched without reason. "You don't have to," he said quietly. "I want to." Those 3 words changed everything. He let her take his hand. His skin was warm, rougher than she expected. A man who fought too often, who lived in the shadows too long. His knuckles were split open, crusted with dried blood. Adiz grabbed the first aid kit from the cabinet and returned. He watched her silently, eyes fixed on the way her fingers handled the bandages. "Who did this?" she asked softly. He hesitated. "Someone who needed a reminder," he finally said. "That violence isn't a reminder," she whispered. "It's a warning." His jaw clenched. Sometimes warnings are necessary. Her hands trembled slightly, whether from fear or something else she didn't know. But she kept cleaning his wounds carefully. "You shouldn't get hurt," she said. "I'm used to it. You shouldn't be." Something flickered in his eyes. "And you shouldn't be here at this hour," he murmured in front of me, "touching me like this. Because I don't have control right now." Her breath hitched. His voice, low, rough, sincere, slipped under her skin. "And when I lose control," he swallowed, eyes darkening. "I do things I shouldn't." The moment they crossed the line, she should have stepped back, stopped touching him, walked away instead. She brushed her thumb gently across his cheek, wiping away the tiny smear of dried blood. His breath stopped. He caught her wrist, not to stop her, but to hold it against his skin. His hand tightened, warm, desperate. "Adiz," he whispered. Her name sounded like a prayer he wasn't supposed to say. She stared into his eyes and saw it. A storm he couldn't hide anymore. Be fear. Yearning. Slowly, he leaned in. He didn't kiss her at first. He just rested his forehead against hers, breathing her in like her nearness alone was enough to steady him. "This is wrong," he murmured. His breath trembled. "I shouldn't want you." Her lips graced his as she whispered back. "Then don't." A lot, a challenge, a plea. His hand slid to the back of her neck, and then he kissed her. Not soft, not hesitant, but deep, consuming. 6 months of suppressed desire unleashed in a single moment. Adiz melted into him, fingers gripping his shirt, heartbeat syncing with his. He smelled like danger and cologne and something heartbreakingly human. He pulled back only when they were both breathless. His forehead pressed to hers again. "This shouldn't have happened," he said quietly. "I know. We can't do it again." She nodded. But then he kissed her again. Longer, slower, like he already knew they were lying. Their lips parted, but their connection didn't. "This is going to ruin us," she whispered. His thumb brushed her jaw. "Then let it." Adiz had always known something was wrong with this house. Not the architecture, not the silence, not even Jin-hyuk's unpredictable moods. It was the shadows. They moved strangely here, followed strangely, watched strangely. And tonight, they showed their teeth. A house too quiet. Ever since the kiss, that wasn't supposed to happen, but did twice. The kiss that still burned on her lips. Jin-hyuk had disappeared. 3 days. No footsteps in the hallway. No voice drifting from the kitchen. No brooding presence in the living room. He was gone. Minji was worried too, but she covered it with fake enthusiasm. "AA always travels," she said. "He'll be back." But her eyes darted away. Her fingers shook. She wasn't telling the whole truth. Adiz felt it deep in her bones. Something was off. The wrong sound in the wrong place. The house was quiet that evening. Too quiet. Minji had gone to study with friends. Adiz stayed behind to write an essay, but her focus shattered when she heard it. A muffled yell. Melby coming from downstairs. Her blood turned cold. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe it was the TV from next door. Maybe there was again a choked, strangled sound. Not imagination. Not a TV. Not normal. Adiz followed the sound through the hallway, unsure why curiosity outweighed fear. Her footsteps slowed as she reached a door she'd never seen open before. A basement door. One Minji had never mentioned. One Jin-hyuk had never spoken of. The yelling grew louder. Her heart hammered as she pressed her palm against the door. Unlocked, her throat closed. Don't do this. Turn back. Call someone. But she opened it. The descent. The basement stairs were made of concrete. Industrial. Wrong for a family home. As she stepped down, the smell hit her. Metallic and sharp blood. Her stomach flipped. Light flickered at the bottom. Harsh white fluorescence buzzing like dying bees. And then she heard voices. Oh, menacing, familiar. Jin-hyuk's voice. Adiz froze on the last step. She didn't want to go forward, but her legs betrayed her. She stepped into the basement, and her world shattered. The secret. There were 3 men in the room. 2 of them she'd never seen. Big masked, intimidating. The third, Jin-hyuk, still in his black suit. Tie gone, sleeves rolled up, jaw like a blade. Blood splattered his shirt. He stood over a man tied to a chair, bruised and bleeding. The man begged in Korean, sobbing, pleading for mercy. Jin-hyuk didn't move. He just stared at the man like he wasn't a person, like he was a problem. Disdain. A mistake. Adiz's breath hitched loud enough for him to hear. His head whipped toward her instantly, and everything froze the moment he saw her. Adiz. Her name wasn't a question, it was a curse. He moved so fast she stumbled back. He grabbed her shoulders before she could fall. His voice was razor sharp, panicked, furious, terrified. I heard something, she whispered. I didn't know. I didn't know this. I didn't know you. He exhaled shakily, a sound full of anger and something much deeper. You weren't supposed to see this. She pushed against his chest, shaking. This man, you're hurting him. What is happening to Jin-hyuk? What is this? He closed his eyes briefly. A pained expression washed over him. I told you, he said, voice low and raw. I'm not someone you should love. Her breath broke. She whispered. Who said anything about love? You did, he said softly, eyes burning into hers. Every time you looked at me, her heart cracked open. Is this who you are? She asked, voice trembling with fear and betrayal. A criminal. He swallowed hard. I am the criminal. The words hit like a slap. Not a criminal. The one people whispered about. The ghost of Seoul's underworld. The man every gang feared. Adiz stumbled back, tears burning her eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have left, he rasped. I should leave, she said, voice barely audible. His jaw clenched so tight she thought it might break. But you won't, he whispered. You came down here. Her knees buckled. Fear, confusion, heartbreak crashing into her all at once. He caught her before she fell, pulling her against his chest with a desperation she'd never seen in him before. I didn't want you to know, he said, voice shaking. I wanted just for once, something good, something pure. She pushed weakly at him, but he didn't let go. Jin-hyuk, she cried softly. What else have you lied about? He rested his forehead on hers, breath uneven. Everything, he whispered, except how I feel about you. Adiz barely slept after the almost kiss in the hallway. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt Jin-hyuk's breath ghost against her cheek again, his hand on the wall beside her head. His voice, tell me you don't want me. She hadn't been able to tell him anything, and now she was paying for it, taunting fate. The next morning, Jin-hyuk was gone before sunrise. Minji was unusually bubbly over breakfast, rambling about an exam, oblivious to the way Adiz's heart was still slamming against her ribs, replaying last night on a loop. When Minji finally rushed out the door, Adiz let out a shaky breath alone in the kitchen until she felt it, that prickling heat. He was leaning in the doorway, silent, watching. His white dress shirt sleeves were rolled to the elbow, exposing looping ink along his veins. His eyes were unreadable, not cold, not warm, but dangerous in a slow, simmering way. Morning. Her voice cracked. He didn't answer. He only stepped closer. Every movement unhurriedly, measured, like a predator who knew his prey wasn't running. Without speaking, He reached past her and took the mug she was holding. His fingers brushed hers lightly, deliberately. You didn't sleep. It wasn't a question. No, she whispered. His jaw ticked. You're thinking too much. Because of you. She wanted to say instead about what happened last night. His eyes hardened. It shouldn't have happened. Her heart dropped until he leaned down, lips almost at her ear. But it will happen again. A shiver rippled through her. He stepped away before she could speak, grabbing his keys. Listen carefully. His tone sharpened. Don't leave the house today. Because I said so, he said, as if that explained everything. And then he was gone, leaving her with nothing but questions and a heartbeat that wouldn't calm. A message she was never meant to see. By afternoon, the walls of the penthouse felt too quiet. She paced, tried studying, tried cleaning. Nothing helped. Every soft sound made her think he was back. When her phone buzzed on the sofa, she assumed it was Minji, but it wasn't a text. It was a notification from Jin Hyuk's tablet left on the table. It had synced, and the preview said, "We found her. Bring the girl." Adiz froze. Girl? Who were they talking about? Her pulse spiked. Curiosity, fear, instinct. They all collided. She shouldn't open it. She really shouldn't. She opened it anyway. A group message from unknown numbers. Encrypted. Boss, do you want us to extract the target quietly? The black girl is alone. Her vision blurred. They were talking about her. Hands shook as she scrolled. If we take her now, Kong Jin-hyuk will come running. Then use her as leverage. Force him to hand over the ledger. She didn't know what that was, but they clearly thought she was important enough to threaten him with. Her knees buckled. Was this his dark secret? Was this why he didn't want her outside? Why he kept controlling everything? Who she talked to? Where she went because the world outside wasn't just dangerous. It was dangerous because of him. She slammed the tablet shut, breathing hard, and then a sound behind her. A door unlocking. She spun, panic flooding her veins, only to find Jin-hyuk stepping in, his expression sharp, tense, like he'd been fighting with the world itself. He stopped when he saw her face. What happened? His voice was low, lethal. She pointed at the tablet. I saw your messages for the first time since she'd known him. Something like shock flickered across his features. Then it was gone. They're watching me, she whispered. And they're watching to me. Yes, he said. She recoiled. No explanation, no apology, no anything. His eyes softened barely. You were never supposed to see that. That's all you have to say. Jin-hyuk, someone wants to kidnap me because of you. His jaw clenched so hard the muscle twitched. That's why I told you to stay inside. That's why I made rules. That's why? That's not protecting me, she snapped. That's locking me up. He stepped closer. That's keeping you alive. A truth he didn't want to say. She backed away. You said you had secrets, she said, voice cracking. But you didn't tell me I was part of them. He inhaled sharply. You became part of them the second you walked into this house. Silence. Then her voice barely a whisper. Because I'm Minji's friend, or because you wanted me for yourself. Something in him snapped. He grabbed her wrist. Not hard, but firm enough that she felt the tremor in his fingers. Don't twist this, he warned. Then tell me why, she demanded. His breath hitched. His eyes dropped to her lips. She felt the answer before he said it. You know why? A hot, suffocating pause. Then she whispered, say it. You did. Because I can't stay away from you. The almost confession. He let go of her wrist, but only to cup her jaw instead. His forehead pressed to hers. His voice was raw. They want to use you against me. They think you're my weakness. She breathed. But I'm not letting anything happen to you, he continued. Not while I'm breathing. The world went quiet. He leaned in closer, lips almost touching. A loud crash erupted outside the penthouse door. A shout, running footsteps. Jin-hyuk froze. His eyes darkened instantly, flipping from vulnerable to deadly. He pulled away, grabbed a gun from the drawer, and loaded it with a calmness that terrified her more than the danger outside. He turned to her. Adiz, his voice dropped, deep, urgent, soft. Whatever you hear, whatever happens, don't open this door. Her breath shook. Jin-hyuk. We're not done talking, he said. Not even close. He stepped into the hallway, shutting the door behind him. Adiz pressed her palms to the wood, trembling. Outside, a gunshot. Then another, then silence, and all she could think was, Jin-hyuk's dark secret didn't just involve danger. It was coming for them now. The gunshots echoed long after the hallway fell silent. Adiz stood frozen with her hands pressed against the door, her heartbeat slamming wildly against her ribs as the smell of gunpowder drifted faintly under the crack. Jinhyuk, please be okay. She didn't know how long she stood there, seconds, minutes, hours before the lock clicked again. Adiz stepped back, breath trembling violently. The door opened, and Kang Jinhyuk stepped in. His white shirt was splattered with blood. Not his. She saw that first felt it deep in her bones, but someone else's. His expression was still in that terrifying half-state, sharp, cold, focused. His gun hung loosely at his side, but his knuckles were white from gripping it. He shut the door behind him. For a long moment, he didn't speak, and neither did she. Finally, his voice, hoarse low. Are you hurt? Adiz shook her head. He exhaled, something like relief buried under exhaustion. But she couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't look away from the blood dripping down his arm. He placed the gun on the counter, then turned to her. They came for you. Her stomach dropped. Because of this ledger, this mafia warrior in. He didn't deny it. He just stepped closer slowly, as if approaching a frightened animal. She didn't realize she was shaking until he touched her cheek with fingers still trembling from adrenaline. She flinched. He froze. And for the first time since she'd known him, Kang Jinhyuk looked hurt. I scared you, he whispered. She didn't answer. You're scared of me, Jinhyuk. I don't know who you are. His secret unmasked. He stepped back, not far, but enough to stop himself from reaching for her again. Then slowly, like peeling back armor he had worn his whole life, he told her the truth. All my life, people have tried to control me, he said. My father, his enemies, the police, politicians, everyone. He looked at his bloodstained hands. I became the monster they wanted. A weapon, a leader, a name that made grown men tremble. Adiz swallowed hard. She'd seen glimpses of him, cold, furious, possessive, but never this. He looked up. When Minji brought you here, I tried to pretend you were just her friend. But you weren't. His voice softened dangerously. You were the one thing I wanted that I had no right to want. Adiz's chest tightened. Jinhyuk, I tried to stay away. I tried to push you away, but every day you were here laughing, cooking, humming under your breath. His voice dropped. I started to feel human again. Her breath caught, but the men outside. He continued, they want me dead, and the ledger is the only leverage I have, and they think they can reach me through you. Adiz felt the weight of his next words coming. Heavy and irreversible. You're my weakness, Adiz. And they will kill you to get to me. The choice that wasn't a choice. The room felt smaller. Odder like she was breathing the same burning air he was. But I didn't ask to be part of this. She whispered. He nodded slowly. I know. And you didn't tell me. I couldn't. His voice broke for the first time. Because if you knew, you would have run. You swallowed, and that would have destroyed me. Adiz pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. So what now? I can't stay here like a prisoner. I can't pretend everything is normal. I can't just ignore all of this. Jinhyuk closed the distance between them. His fingers brushed her jaw. Gentle, careful, terrifying. You won't have to. Their eyes locked. There are two choices, he said quietly. Leave this house tonight. I'll put you on a plane myself. You'll be safe. This world will never touch you again. Her throat burned. And the other. His voice dropped to a whisper that felt like fire against her skin. Stay POS. Her breath hitched. It means danger. He warned. It means enemies, secrets, blood. His thumb dragged softly across her cheek. It also means I will protect you with every breath I have. Her heart slammed painfully against her chest. I won't ask again, he said, voice trembling with the effort to stay controlled. This is the last moment you get to choose before my world takes your choice away forever. He leaned in, forehead touching hers. Tell me, Adiz. His voice was barely a breath. Do you want to run from me? Another beat. Or do you want me? Her answer. Adiz's mind swirled with everything. The dangers, the blood, the obsession in his eyes, the softness he tried so hard to hide. The way he said her name like a prayer, her heart already knew. Her lips parted. I should run, she whispered. Jinhyuk closed his eyes as if bracing for impact. But I'm not going to. His eyes snapped open. Adiz. She lifted her trembling hand and touched his cheek. I want you, she breathed. Even if I shouldn't. Even if it's dangerous. Even if it's wrong. His breath hitched, sharp broken. Then he grabbed her waist and kissed her. Not gentle, not careful, but desperate, claiming as if he had been dying for this moment for months. Her hands tangled in his hair. His grip tightened on her hips. Their world, dangerous, chaotic, forbidden, collapsed into a single undeniable truth. She had chosen him, and whatever came next, they would face it. The morning after Adiz made her choice, the weight of it settled over her like smoke. Sunlight filtered through the heavy curtains of Jin-hyuk's penthouse, casting long shadows across the marble floors. She woke alone in his bed, silk sheets tangled around her legs, the scent of his cologne still clinging to her skin. Her body ached in ways that reminded her of everything that had happened, everything that had changed. Jin-hyuk stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, already dressed in a charcoal suit, his back rigid with tension. He was speaking in rapid Korean into his phone, his voice low and dangerous. She caught fragments. Orders. Threats. The language of a man who controlled an empire built on fear. When he noticed she was awake, he ended the call abruptly. His eyes found hers across the room, and for a moment, the hardness in his face softened. But only for a moment. "We need to talk," he said, setting his phone aside. "About what happens now." Adiz pulled the sheet higher, suddenly aware of her vulnerability. Not just her nakedness, but everything else. Her life had been rewritten overnight, and she didn't know the rules of this new world she'd entered. "Your enemies," she said quietly. "Are they still out there?" Jin-hyuk's jaw tightened. "More than before. What happened last night, my men killing those who came for you, it sends a message. It tells everyone in Seoul's underworld that you matter to me, that you're mine to protect." The word mine should have bothered her. A week ago, it would have. Now it sent heat spiraling through her chest. "And Minji," Adiz asked. "What do we tell her?" Something flickered across his face. "Pain, maybe. Guilt. She can never know. Not about any of this. The moment she finds out what I really am, she becomes a target too. And I won't let that happen. So I lie to my best friend. We both do." His voice was firm, but she heard the cost in it. Some prices are worth paying. Over the next few days, Adiz learned what it meant to live in Jin-hyuk's world. She couldn't leave the building without armed guards. Her phone was replaced with an encrypted device. Men in expensive suits appeared and disappeared from the penthouse at all hours, speaking in hushed tones about territory disputes and missing shipments. Minji noticed the changes immediately. "You're different," she said one afternoon as they sat in the university library. "More tense. And you keep checking your phone like you're expecting bad news." "Just adjusting to Seoul," Adiz lied, hating how easily the words came. "It's a big change from Lagos." But Minji's eyes were too knowing. "And my brother, he's been around more. Usually he disappears for weeks at a time. Now he's home every night, like he's watching over something. Maybe he's just being a good host." "Jin-hyuk doesn't do anything just to be good," Minji said with a bitter laugh. "He always has an agenda." That night, Adiz confronted him about it. They were in his study, a room lined with books in 3 languages and a safe she'd noticed but never mentioned. He was reviewing documents that looked disturbingly like police files. "She thinks you're up to something," Adiz said. "She's not stupid, Jin-hyuk. She's going to figure it out." He looked up from the papers, his expression unreadable. "Then we'll deal with it when it happens. That's your solution. Deal with it. What would you have me do?" He stood, moving toward her with that predatory grace she'd learned to recognize. "Send you back to Nigeria. Pretend this never happened. Pretend I don't love you." The word hit her like a physical blow. They'd shared their bodies, their secrets, their fears, but neither had spoken that word aloud. Love. Such a simple sound for something so complicated. "You love me," she whispered, dangerously. He reached for her, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw. "Completely. In a way that makes me weak, and weakness in my world gets people killed. Then maybe we should be more careful. Or maybe," he said, pulling her against him, "we should stop pretending this is anything other than what it is. Forever. You and me, bound together by choice and circumstance, and something stronger than both." The attack came 3 days later. Adiz was alone in the penthouse while Jin-hyuk attended what he called a business meeting. She was reading for her literature class, trying to maintain some normalcy in her increasingly surreal life, when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from Jin-hyuk. "Stay where you are. Don't move. I'm coming." But she could hear them in the hallway. Voices speaking Chinese, not Korean. The scrape of metal against metal. They were trying to get through the reinforced door. She remembered his training. The knife hidden in the kitchen drawer. The panic room behind the bookshelf. But her body was frozen with terror, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might give her away. The door exploded inward. 3 men in black tactical gear swept into the room, weapons raised. She dove behind the couch just as the first shots were fired, plaster and wood splintering around her. "Find the girl," one of them barked in accented English. "Alive if possible, dead if necessary." They moved through the penthouse with military precision, checking every corner, every hiding spot. She could hear them getting closer. Her phone had fallen during her dive for cover, and she could see it lying just out of reach, the screen showing a stream of missed calls from Jin-hyuk. When she reached for it, a hand grabbed her ankle. "Found her," the man called out in Korean. But as he dragged her from behind the couch, she remembered something else from Jin-hyuk's training. The small blade he'd made her tape to her thigh. Insurance, he'd called it, for when everything else fails. She twisted, pulling the knife free in one smooth motion, and drove it up into the man's throat. Blood sprayed across her face as he collapsed, his eyes wide with shock. The other two were on her in seconds, but she was already moving, using her smaller size to stay low, to stay quick. One of them clipped her shoulder with a punch that sent her spinning, but she kept the knife, kept fighting. She was losing. They were trained killers, and she was a literature student with 3 days of self-defense lessons. But then the remaining windows of the penthouse exploded inward, and Jin-hyuk came through them like an avenging angel, rappelling down from the roof with a rifle in his hands. He moved with deadly efficiency, each shot precise, final. The 2 remaining attackers dropped before they could react. The silence that followed was deafening. Jin-hyuk reached her in 3 strides, pulling her against his chest with hands that shook despite his calm exterior. His voice was raw when he spoke. "Are you hurt?" She looked down at herself. Blood on her clothes, but most of it wasn't hers. A bruised shoulder, scraped knees, but alive. "Whole. I killed someone," she whispered, staring at the body by the couch. The man whose blood was still warm on her hands. "You defended yourself." His fingers tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You survived. That's what matters." But she could see it in his face. The knowledge that this was just the beginning. That her choice to stay in his world meant choices like this one. Blood on her hands. Violence as a way of life. "We can't stay here," he said, pulling out his phone to make calls that would make the bodies disappear, that would make it like this never happened. "They found us too easily. Someone gave them information. A traitor. Yes. And until I find out who, nowhere is safe." They left Seoul that night, driving through the darkness toward a safe house in the mountains. Adiz watched the city lights fade in the side mirror and wondered if she'd ever see civilization again. If this was what loving a mafia boss meant. Running from shadow to shadow, always looking over your shoulder, always waiting for the next attack. But when she looked at Jin-hyuk's profile in the dashboard light, saw the tension in his shoulders and the protective way he kept glancing at her, she knew her answer hadn't changed. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The safe house was more fortress than home. Concrete walls, bulletproof windows, enough weapons to supply a small army. But it was also beautiful in its stark way, perched on a cliff overlooking a valley filled with ancient pines. "We'll be safe here," Jin-hyuk said as they stood on the terrace, watching the sun rise over the mountains. "For a while. And then I find who betrayed us. And I make them pay." There was something final in his voice. Something that spoke of violence to come, of blood that would be spilled in her name. She should have been horrified. Instead, she felt a dark satisfaction. Someone had tried to take her from him, and they would suffer for it. What was happening to her? The girl who'd arrived in Seoul 3 weeks ago would never have thought such things, would never have felt such hunger for revenge. But that girl had never killed a man with her own hands, had never seen the lengths someone would go to in order to protect her, had never loved someone enough to burn the world down for them. "I want to help," she said. "No." His response was immediate, absolute. "You're not ready for that part of this life. I killed 3 men tonight. You defended yourself. That's different from hunting someone down and executing them in cold blood." She turned to face him fully. "Maybe I want to learn the difference." Something shifted in his expression. A recognition, maybe, of what she was becoming. What loving him was turning her into. "If that's what you really want," he said slowly, "then I'll teach you. But understand this, once you cross that line, There's no going back. You'll be as much a part of this world as I am. As stained by it. I'm already stained, she said, looking down at her hands where traces of blood still lingered under her fingernails. The question is whether I'll be smart enough to survive it. They found the traitor 2 days later. It was Sungo, the boy from the university party. The one who'd tried to dance with her, who'd seemed so harmless. He'd been feeding information to a Chinese syndicate, reporting her movements, her routines. All for money to pay off gambling debts. Jin Hyuk's men brought him to an abandoned warehouse outside the city. Adiz insisted on coming, despite every instinct that told her to stay away. She watched as Jin Hyuk questioned him with clinical precision. No screaming, no dramatic threats. Just quiet questions and the gradual realization that there would be no mercy. Please, Sungo begged, tied to a chair in the center of the empty space. I didn't know they would try to kill her. They said they just wanted to scare you. Jin Hyuk circled him slowly, like a predator studying its prey. You put her in danger for money. You betrayed her friendship for money. I needed the cash. I had debts. Then you should have come to me. I could have helped you. Instead, you chose to make her a target. He stopped in front of the chair, pulling out a pistol with the same casual motion he might use to check his watch. Any last words? Sungo's eyes found Adiz across the room. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She felt nothing. No pity, no forgiveness. Just cold satisfaction that the person who'd tried to destroy her happiness would pay for it. Jin Hyuk fired once. Clean, quick, final. As his men disposed of the body, Jin Hyuk walked to where she stood near the warehouse entrance. How do you feel? He asked. Like justice was done, she said, and meant it. He studied her face in the dim light, looking for signs of shock or regret. Finding none. You're becoming someone different, he observed. Someone harder. Someone who belongs in your world. Are you sure that's what you want? She thought about it. Really thought about it. The girl from Lagos who dreamed of studying literature in Seoul was gone. In her place was someone who could kill without hesitation, who could watch executions without flinching. Someone who chose love over safety, passion over peace. I'm sure, she said. 3 months later, they returned to Seoul. Not as the same people who'd left, but as partners in every sense of the word. Jin Hyuk had taught her everything. How to read the criminal underground, how to spot threats, how to eliminate them. She'd become his most trusted advisor, the only person who could talk him down from the edge when his darker instincts threatened to take over. Minji had graduated and moved to Busan for her job, still unaware of what her brother really did, still believing Adiz had simply fallen in love with an older man. It was easier that way. Safer. On their first night back in the penthouse, Jin Hyuk found her standing in the same spot where she'd killed her first attacker. The bloodstains were gone, the bullet holes repaired, but the memory lingered. Regrets? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Only one. She leaned back against his chest, feeling the solid strength of him, the warmth that had become her anchor in a world of shifting loyalties and constant danger. What's that? That it took me so long to understand who I really was. He turned her in his arms, his eyes searching her face. And who is that? She smiled, and it was sharper than it used to be, harder around the edges. Someone who loves a dangerous man. Someone who chose the darkness because that's where she found her light. When he kissed her, she could taste their future in it. More blood, more violence, more moments when they'd have to choose between right and wrong and pick each other instead. But also passion that burned bright enough to blind them to the consequences. Love that was worth every sin they'd committed in its name. They'd chosen each other, and whatever came next, they would face it together. In the shadows where monsters fell in love and angels learned to sin. Where a girl from Nigeria and a Korean mafia boss had found something worth killing for. Something worth dying for. Something worth everything.